10 strands of dormant DNA, not 2 strands that we know about, but 12 total, and 10 of them have been kind of dormant. And all this energy is now coming in waves, and they can measure it and so on. That's affecting us all. And what it's doing is starting to stitch together these strands that have been cut up. And they're putting it together. And what that does is connect us all into an extraordinary new set of capabilities that most people don't have. I mean, these capabilities are all out there: telepathy, manifestation, and so on. Everybody knows about them because they exist.
Welcome back to Catalyst Talks podcast. I am thrilled to share this conversation with you all. And if you do not yet know John Petersen, let this introduction blow you away. John is a futurist, a strategist, a large scale change agent, and he's considered by many one of the most insightful futurists in our world. I'm very mindful about this word futurists and some of the sort of mainstream futurists that are driving a lot of narrative. And there are a lot of other versions. And this is what is so awesome about your work, John. You're best known for writing and thinking about high impact surprises. He's the wild card guy. I want to talk about wild cards today and the process of surprise anticipation. John has had a prestigious career in government and politics, including stints at the National War College, Institute for National Security Studies, the Office of the Secretary of Defense, National Security Council staff at the White House, and he was a naval flight officer in the U.S. Navy and Navy Reserve and is a decorated veteran. But John's not only about war. You're about creation. You're about illuminating possibility and change. And along with this, like this long list of career accomplishments, there's a really deep impact to your work, John. And I'm grateful to know you. Also, the founder of the Arlington Institute, and where they host a lot of several media shows, several different media shows with thoughtful futurists and thought leaders. And you talk a lot about global futures, John, and influencing rapid positive change. I want to know a lot about your story. Today, I also want to ask you the question that I hear you ask your guests on your shows. What's up? What are you thinking about lately?
Well, it's nice to be here, Steph. I always enjoy being with you, my friend. Um, well, what's up? The This is an amazing time. You mentioned some of that military stuff that I used to do, and there were times back in the 80s that I was building reports and other things that were being used by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And back in that period of time, I, through a process, I started to imagine, visualize early on the convergence of all these things coming together out there on the horizon that were going to change things just fundamentally, big time. I mean, I remember specifically when kind of the significance of the environmental kind of changes and movement affected me, and it almost drove me to tears. But there were a whole bunch of things, technology and social value shifts and other things that were all a part of this. And I dedicated a good piece of my life to trying to influence the leadership of the military around these kinds of ideas. Well, it's one thing to run around the world and give speeches. I don't know, maybe I've given maybe 350 speeches or something on every continent except Australia. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about and written 3 books and so on, and about all this stuff, and it's all coming together, and it's all been out there, on the horizon. Here it comes, here it comes. And it's one thing to talk about it and think about it in these kind of abstract conceptual kind of terms, and it's another thing to all of a sudden it's here, and you're in the middle of it, and it's just going, and it's going sideways, and things are irrational, and you can't make sense, and you can't tell the truth, and you don't know what's real, and it's just amazing to be kind of in the middle of this extraordinary transition to what we call a new human in a new world. What we think is that this is a unique combination of occurrences that some of which are cosmic, some have to do with personal development and where you are in terms of your evolution and consciousness and so on. But when these things all come together, and again, it's multiple kind of component. It's not just a nice time for people to start thinking about feeling better or something like that. I mean, this is big time stuff that is influenced by cosmic configurations and the planets and the solar system going, transiting across the plane of the galaxy and getting hit by all kinds of energy, which is affecting us all, affecting the planet, affecting our DNA. And there's many numbers of sources that say that we've had 10 strands of dormant DNA, not two strands that we know about, but 12 total, and 10 of them have been kind of dormant, and all this energy is now coming in waves, and they can measure it and so on. That's affecting us all, and what it's doing is starting to stitch together these strands that have been cut up. There's a lot of history about this, about what happened, and but they're putting it together, and what that does is connect us all into an extraordinary new set of capabilities that most people don't have. I mean, these capabilities are all out there: telepathy and manifestation and so on. Everybody knows about them because they exist in places, and levitation and all this kind of stuff that we've all heard about, and strange people somewhere on the other side of the world or something all can do and figure things out. But what that is the early indications of the emergence, the bubbling up, if you will, of these kind of capabilities. And what typically happens is that that these early indicators, they start to accrete. The people start to come around them, like-minded folks, some of whom have those capabilities, others who are interested in them. And so you start to get patterns and groups, and then boom, and all of a sudden, over a short period of time, you get a state change. It's like converting from water to ice, that in just a fraction of a degree of temperature, what you get is a dramatically different kind of physical manifestation of what you got. Well, that's what we've got going here. We've got something of huge implications, but it's not it's not just the good guys getting their act together, because there's another side to this thing, and at the same time, you've got this amazing kind of exponential increase in technology that we've certainly seen in terms of social media and the other things that we're all familiar with. But now AI, that is essentially on the verge of of gaining control over every aspect of our life. It's nothing less than that. They have technology now that knows what you think, and that can put thoughts in your head, that can monitor your body and what's going on everywhere, that can tell where you are located, know everything about what you've done, so they can build sophisticated profiles of what you're likely to do and what you like and what you think about and what you believe. They have the capability. They're working their way. I mean, it's just ongoing. It's just kind of amazing. They can literally track you from satellites, so they know where you are, they know who you are, where you are, and they can influence you from a distance. And we're very close, 2 years, I believe, to having this whole thing kind of lock us all up. It just depends now on digital ID identification, and central bank digital currencies, which are digital currencies. They're trying to essentially collapse the dollar and replace it with a digital currency. And then when they've got the digital ID, then they got you. And you can't spend money. Your car won't drive, more than 3 blocks if that's what they want. It just goes on and on and on. It's very much 1984. It's Orwellian kind of stuff, and we're right on it. And so that's what we're working on right now. And we can talk about that if you'd like. That we're very much here at the Arlington Institute. Our central focus is how do you get a facilitated global conversation, an active, facilitated, curated, we call it, a conversation about what an alternative world could be. How do you get off the track? How do you take the exit ramp off? And instead of going downstream where this old technology is trying to take us, how do we get to somewhere else? So anyway, we're doing lots of different things like that.
Well, what were you thinking about? Was this in the horizon for you 30, 40 years ago?
Oh, no, not 30 or 40 years ago. Like I say, it first started to show it well.
20.
I've been around long enough that I lose the sense of time. I guess 1985 or 7 or something like that was about 34 or 40 years ago. No, it certainly didn't have the granularity. And of course, at that time, I was trying to change the military. That was my background, and that's what I understood. And I had access at that levels. And so, and like I say, so it was during this process that I got exposed to the big picture somewhat. And then what happened, I had a couple of really anomalous epiphanal experiences. I was popped out of my body one day when I was trying to sell something to somebody. And I'm on the ceiling looking down, watching myself and saying, wow, you're down there talking and you're going to run out of things to say here in a minute because I'm up here. And you must have a recording or something going. And I waited some more and watched it all. And I said, well, you're still talking and you're making sense. I don't know how this works. And boom, then it all switched again. And, a couple of days later, I said, what in the world was that? And that then was followed a couple of years later by having a kind of an event where for 15 seconds or something, I knew everything. I knew the reality. I knew what everything was. I was trying to solve a problem associated with a project that we were working on. And all of a sudden, boom, everything turned to this kind of amber color. And I'm working my way around here to the left saying, wow. I was giddy about saying, yeah, is this real? Is this amazing? This is amazing. By the time I got over to the left, looking to the left, then it quit again. But I had experienced it, and I had experienced a reality that was, I banged on my desk and said, God, where I was 100 times more real than this.
Yeah.
And that then, I don't know, some people I suppose could walk away from that kind of stuff, but I couldn't. And so that gave me the basis for start poking around and trying to see what the rest of this was. And because of where I was working and where I was involved with the government, I had top secret clearance, and then I heard about these remote viewer guys, and so I knew where I could go find them, and I found them, and and learned and became friendly with them, and started to hear about what they could do, and it was mind blowing, and
take us there. What happened? We'll come back to that.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, if you can find a submarine at the bottom of the ocean and just in your mind sitting somewhere. I mean, I have a friend who was a chief warrant officer in the Army who sat in a chair in suburban Maryland one afternoon. And he traveled mentally to China and got inside of one of their missiles and worked his way up to the warhead and the arming system for this nuclear missile, and looked at it and figured it out how it worked, and then came back here. I mean, all within an hour or something. And he drew a schematic about how the thing worked. Then he went down to Radio Shack. Remember Radio Shack? He went down to Radio Shack and got some components, and he breadboarded it up of a circuit. And then he took it to the scientists and engineers and said, here's the way they do it. And they all said, that'd work. You know, and he got the biggest medal that the government, that the military gives away to non-combat people. You know, he became a kind of a big cheese because he figured, and it just goes on and on like that. I mean, this was originally was run out of SRI, which ultimately became Stanford Research Institute. And the early the first guy who literally named the program, named it remote viewing, was a guy named Ingo Swann, who was at the time was kind of the best known psychic in the country. And Ingo lived in New York, but he'd travel out there all the time. Well, Ingo became we became friends. And so I would go up to New York every month and have lunch with Ingo for a number of years. And God, I mean, when you listen to a guy like that, who then shows you the pictures of the structures on the moon, and you know what's going on here and where they're growing things, and you can see the green in the pictures of the moon, and I mean, it just drives you. You very, very quickly, you know, you figure out that, man, but what they told you in college, I mean, that wasn't it. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I been to India, but spent a lot of time with people who, you know, purported to be avatars, God on earth, and, you know, learned a lot of things from that, and traveled all over the world chasing, you know, trying to become somebody better, or call it what you'd like, and have I just got involved in UFOs and aliens and all these things because they all are part of this alternative, part of the reality that most people don't understand. And so it's an integral part of the system. And if you are trying to think about the future in a systematic way, you have to understand that it is a system. And if you don't have all the component parts of the system, then you're playing with half a deck. You don't know what's, you know, you're prepared, you're setting yourself up to get surprised. And the surprises that are involved with the change at this scale are really big. And that's where, if you haven't thought about that, it drives you into fear. And you really don't want to be behind. You know, that doesn't help. You can't think straight. And these big changes that are coming downstream. I mean, just AI for one, and you know, any number of other things. All this stuff with deep fakes and the ability, you don't even know what's real anymore, and all of the component parts of the system, government, education, you name it, all these pieces have all degenerated from what they used to be, which were, you know, pretty stand-up kind of things. You went to college and you didn't think anybody was lying to you. You thought that they were telling you the truth, and so on, and not so anymore. And so it's a whole different kind of ball game that doesn't work by the rules that you know, all of us grew up with. It doesn't work with the assumptions that we all grew up with. And so what you need to literally do is become a new human. You have to
Mm.
reconfigure who you are, who you think you are, how you
Yeah.
see the reality. It's this expanded awareness. Call it what you'd like, conscious increase in consciousness or awakening,
Yes.
evolutionary jump or whatever. But so it's an amazing time. It's just extraordinary.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Your attention means the world to me. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share or subscribe. Click the button. There's a red button somewhere on this page. Subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. Take a moment to review the show, comment on this episode. Your engagement, your attention means the world to us, and it really helps us spread these important messages and enables us to continue to put this amazing content out in the world. So thank you for being part of this conversation. Your attention means the world to me. And now, back to this episode. It is, and this is the work that I do with individuals and leaders is around that consciousness jump and making sense and meaning about this moment. And so what I hear what you're saying, thinking about 30 years ago, and this, and there's a whole emergence of systems change, like an industry right now, professionals with systems change professionals and their titles, and so it's a thing now where systems thinking, it's always been a thing. Now there's like impact or sustainability. This is a new thing. And there's a lot of people thinking about systems change. And I think it's like there's this, I'm not judging because I'm not in those all of those conversations, though I see it sort of this still within that bandwidth of perception, that older bandwidth of perception, and things that we're talking about right here, right now, thinking about 30 years ago. What do we wish we knew now? What do we wish we listened to now, 30 years ago? And what do people wish or go? What are they going to wish they listened to now in 30 years from now? That is a question I always ask, because there's so many people who, including, like, I'm always noticing I'm self-censoring, or if I'm really having to discern what words to use so that I'm not automatically, there's no bias, you know what I mean? There's a lot of that energy I feel right now, and to maintain credibility, to speak with certain words, and I feel like that's doing a disservice. I'm doing a disservice to the ultimate work, which is expanding our perception and saying, no, 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 listen to what you will wish you listened to in 30 years. So, given that, what do you see this? Do you see that? What are the trends that you
Yeah,
see being ignored now that folks are going to wish they listened to?
right. Well, for me, it's pretty obvious, and that is that what you need to do is that you start with the start with the assumption that you don't know anything for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm literally that you don't know anything for sure. We have beliefs, a different degree of beliefs, and so on, and that the essence of this transition is a movement to a whole new paradigm, which is what's your systematic way in which you make sense out of reality. All of ours are different somewhat, but this is the thing that keeps you sane, because things happen in this predictable way, and you therefore can operate within that environment. And if it doesn't operate, if things don't have they don't happen in tomorrow like they did yesterday, then you're constantly at wit's end. I mean, so, and it's very disruptive. And so the very real kind of possibility and likelihood going through all of this is, for folks who haven't taken the time to think about it and have been captured by the media and the governments and whatever, what's going to happen is that things are going to happen that like big time, that you're going to figure out. I mean, this whole business about sex trafficking and pedophilia and other kinds of things. then I never even thought about all that stuff 10 years ago or something like that. And all of a sudden it's bubbling up. And what's happening is that in the next year or two, what you're going to find out is that all that stuff is all over the place in terms of leadership of the government and other kind of things. If you've never considered that before, it is just it kills your whole sense understanding of how things work. You've had all this trust in terms of the system. You've assumed that these people at some level were working for your well-being. No, it turns out not. And so what happens is that you have to operate with a very wide kind of aperture. You have to, because everything is a system, as we said, and so it's all connected together. And so you've got to be able to, have this peripheral vision, if you will, that sees things and say, that could be related to something over there. And you also have to really have a sense of logic. You have to have an internal really kind of crisp sense of what works. Is this logical? Is this truthful in logical terms? Is what's being said really real or not? What benefited me 30 years ago was that I had an engineering degree, and that engineering degree gives you a structure in a way, and not all engineers are like this, I'll admit, but in my case at least, it turned into a very, very clear kind of a sense of what makes sense and what isn't, and what's real and what isn't. And so you had this kind of logical thing. And so when stuff is moving in another way from what it had been before, that you could sense it early on, and you could you could analyze what it is. One of the things that you got to do that I was fortunate, because I've done kind of more things than anybody that I know. I mean, I've been all over the place. I've done all kinds of stuff. And what that does is give you a breadth of understanding of how the system works, rather than this narrow kind of thing. If you've got a PhD in something and you're doing research, you get this very, very narrow but rather deep kind of attachment to and in most cases, they have very little idea about what's going on way other places in the larger system and how it works. I've been very fortunate to be in politics and the military and engineering and advertising and marketing and sales and a whole bunch of nonprofits and the music business. I mean, just lots of different kind of things, all of which I was just interested in. And in retrospect, what you see is that you see the world in a different way. And there's another thing that I would suggest that is important. And that is because every once in a while I have people ask me questions and they say, my kid's gonna go off to college or something, and what should he study and all that. And I said, well, you got to learn how to think. You need to, and that's not how our educational system works right now, because they don't teach you to think. They teach you to memorize and to regurgitate what you've been told. And if you just think of think about this process of moving into a whole different world that moves in a different kind of way, this guy for science. I mean, I've been hanging around in the last few days with some people. Dr. David Martin came and gave a speech here at the Arlington Institute at our Transition Talks series. Every month we have a speaker that comes here, and we live stream it all over. And David's talk was about how that the assumptions that Einstein, among other things, how the assumptions associated with the Einstein and the way he viewed the world have colored everything downstream. And as it turns out, Einstein was wrong. like fundamentally wrong. Einstein even was tentative about his ideas, and he said that if it ever gets proven that there's an ether out here, then all of my ideas are for naught. Nobody remembers that. They've built this whole downstream giant science kind of guerrilla kind of thing based upon those ideas, and they're wrong. And there are aspects of electrical engineering. There are all kinds of things, evolution with Darwin. All these things are wrong. And so if you are not prepared or are capable and experienced in kind of thinking critically, then it's going to be very hard to do. It used to be that the Waldorf schools were a really good place when you were younger to learn how to do that. So Rudolf Steiner was very interested in allowing you to be able to adapt to almost anything because you've learned how to think. It's not necessarily the case anymore, I'm told. But in any case, those are the kinds of things. And so you have to be, you really have to be sensitive to the inbound kind of stuff. You need to realize that things that show up in your life are there for a reason. And that means you got to think about it and not just discount it. And that there are strange kind of flashes of the future that show up, and they're very, very easy to just forget, not even notice or something like that. But if you catch them, then you say, wait a second, that could be interesting. And you kind of park it in the back of your mind. There's a tentativeness about this, the way you go. It's like being an explorer, working your way into some space that nobody's ever been before. And, you always have in the back of your mind to be careful what is it, what isn't it, or whatever, because you can't assume anything. You just really can't assume anything. And so those are all kinds of things that I think it kind of allow you to kind of navigate the rapids, if you will, going forward.
Navigate the rapids. I love that. And as a trained lawyer, we learn about linear causation. And that's another piece, is that this next evolution is inviting the nonlinear perception. And everything is actually, even the nonlinear is linear. It depends, it's redefining what linear is, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
all the dots connect.
Chaos theory. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this idea of causation,
It's not linear, it's deterministic. Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
deterministic. So that comes to what I'm speaking about, right? I wanted to share, you mentioned about narratives, and this is that huge discerning piece. We have, now that John has just shared all of this, the toolbox for discernment in these times, then the question is around nonlinear perception, perceiving what all these dots are and connecting. It's really opening, expanding your aperture of perception. And so how do you think about causation and narratives? Because right now, like all of the narrative, we're being poured in, it's going this way, there's nothing you can do. And it's just like this brainwash. So how do you snap
Okay, so there's
out?
a couple of things there. One is that many of us have experienced alternative kind of reality augmented by certain kinds of biological agents, shall we say. And that is a huge, for me at least, was a huge kind of door opening that said, wait a second, there's something out there that I just really never had any idea about, and that is clearly real to the extent that anything's real. That's kind of real. And then if you poke around in that space a little bit, then you find out all the therapeutic and the analytic and the educational kind of aspects that come from that space.
But
And
you see what you're looking for.
well, you do, and then sometimes you see who you are and you didn't know who you are, or yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that it's predictive. I've certainly never had any experiences that I could predict. But what it does is it's like opening the door and the sun shines in, and you suddenly say, God, there's an outside, there's another thing out there. And so, that's really important.
Mm.
And then tell me your question again. I forgot to.
Yeah, yeah, so around causation and the narrative. So we
Oh,
are
the
we are
narrative.
like we're
Yeah,
the
yeah,
story we're telling is
yeah.
the outcome, right?
All right. Well, yeah, and then again, there's a couple of aspects to that, and one of them is that there's a huge effort uh, to control and define the narrative from the outside. And again, if you go to Orwell, if you remember in 1984, where they're in the middle of a movie or some other kind of thing, and suddenly announcements are made. The old enemy is not our enemy anymore. We now have a new enemy, and now all of it. And so everybody gets up and is rants against the new enemy. Well, there's in a sense that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to control uh, every aspect of who you are, so that you respond predictably, and they have capabilities and power. And they have control of the media. They have they,
Who's they?
they who is they? Well, it's
Who's
the
your they?
bankers, the intelligence community, the archons, maybe, who are even higher than that. There are, the tip of the pyramid up at the top, which is by definition a relatively small number of people, have extraordinary kind of force, and they are and power, and they are trying to gain complete control over humanity. That's why I suggested in passing at the beginning, we've got about 2 years here before they lock this whole thing down. And then they really do have control. And so there's a real importance that we try to do something else. But in any case, they've got a narrative, and that narrative has been developed over a very, very, very long time. They have essentially conditioned the environment to dumb down people and make them sick and other kind of stuff, to make them dependent so that they could be controllable. It's very much kind of Matrix movie like, where there's an endpoint down there where the human consciousness is of such extraordinary magnitude and power that it is a food source, essentially, for these other dimensional entities who are a part of this reality that we live in. And so their objective is to imprison humans by allowing them or encouraging them to imprison themselves, because
Mm.
they try to manipulate the reality such that you say, please, please help me, or sure, I'll buy the next iPhone, or yeah, what's more important than what's happening in Hollywood this week? I mean, there are these extraordinary efforts because they control the media, they control
Science.
politics. They got it all, and it's augmented by science and all of these artificial intelligence and information intelligence capabilities. And so that it's getting to the place where, and if you want a downstream scenario, it's like the Matrix. Like at some point, you're so dependent on them and you got nothing else to do, because they got robots out the gazoo, and they're all run by AI, so that they're smarter than we are, and we don't need them anymore. I mean, Eric Schmidt, who used to be the CEO of Google back um, 8 or 9 years ago, said is kind of famous for saying that 85% of all of the jobs that existed back then will, within 10 years, will be obsolete because the AI and the other things, you could see them coming downstream. He most recently said, 3 or 4 months ago, he said that if we don't get AI turned in a different direction, that it will be the end of humanity within 10 years. I mean, that's the significance and the urgency that's associated with this whole thing. Well, anyway, they've been working this for a long time, and putting stuff in the food and in the air and in the water and in the everywhere and in skies and the electromagnetic spectrum and everything, all to essentially get human beings to a place where they're dependent, and that they that when confronted with any of the things that can be generated by all this technology, that the humans say, please help us. And they capitulate and they give themselves over to the government. And Ray Kurzweil, who was one of the directors of engineering at Google, says that within about 10 years or so, that you're gonna all of your brain's gonna be connected to the cloud, and then they got you, and that's the whole idea. Is that, so if you remember the imagery from
well, wait, now that
from the Matrix, where they pull the plug, the guy's in a big canister and it's full of gook, and they pull the plug off the top. That's it. That's where it's going.
Okay, and there's an option too.
Oh, right? Well, of course there's an option.
Door B, let's go down door B, which is what the meetings you're having. This is the conversation. We know that there's multiple timelines and possibilities, and your clarion call right now, the urgency of this next 2 years, that is because we can do something different. And what is the vision of that difference for you? Hey everyone, it's me, Stephanie. I wanted to pause this episode and just check in and see how you're doing. We're living through some crazy times right now. We got crazy, oh my God, intense, and we also have amazing. It's a really potent time of evolution. And if you're on that spiritual path, new gifts are coming online. We're being brought to our knees. We are navigating. We are ready to release all of the old programs and patterns. And what I see as we navigate this liminal moment is that our inner worlds can easily mimic the existential uncertainties and chaos in our outer world. We're all navigating some form of an identity shift, and so many people are seeking clarity. So whether you are the clarity seeker and you're ready to activate whatever the next level is for you, the next thing is for you, or you are the soul seeker and you are ready to fully evolve and connect to your deeper authentic power and your unique medicine, or whether you're the pathfinder and it is go time, you're the business mission builder right now, and it is about putting your gifts and talents into the world, from the messaging, all the pieces of that, and who you get to be in that journey, or whether you are the wayfinder and you're ready to expand. You're the visionary leader ready to expand and bring in our new earth. The wayfinders are the bows of the ship. They see in the dark, the navigators, the seers, the intuitives. So whether any of these resonate for you, whether you're seeking clarity and ready to activate, whether you're the soul seeker and ready to evolve, whether you're the pathfinder and ready to emerge, or whether you are the wayfinder and it is time to expand, I invite you to a one-on-one inquiry session with me to explore working together. I have been coaching visionary leaders and entrepreneurs, next-gen investors, for 3 decades now. And it is an absolute honor to hold the sacred space for people to expand and evolve into their higher becoming. So if this is resonating with you at all and you are interested in having this free inquiry session with me, if you're seriously, really serious about exploring working together, then there is a link on this page for you to click. And you can also go to rippleyouриmpact.com and we will have a call very soon. Thank you for taking the time. And now let's return to this episode.
I want to talk about that. But I'll tell you that if you're not aware of the other side, then you get surprised, and that drives you into fear. And this is like fear like you've never seen before, and you don't want that to happen. So you really need to be working with everything. And the important thing, Steph, is that you don't give your emotions to all the narrative and the stuff they're trying to do. You
Mhm.
need to have it in your head and know what they're doing and so on, but you don't go to sleep with it at night. Okay, so I described to you one path that's going out. That path has got a kind of a bumper sticker term called control, and it's all about control and increasing control in one way or another, and particularly now using artificial intelligence then to do everything that you used to do and control what the seeming reality is that's around you. The other alternative is one of freedom. And the freedom track is essentially based upon the notion that all of us have within us the extraordinary kind of capabilities to do everything that they're selling over there on the technocracy side.
Yes.
The technocracy side, the Kurzweils of the world will tell you, well, when you're plugged up to the cloud, then you'll have access to all of this information and you just think something in it. You can do that already. It's called intuition. And this evolution, we're on the edge of an evolutionary jump of the species. Remember the 10 strands of DNA that are getting put together to allow us to do things that we couldn't otherwise do. We're moving into this new space that is going to allow us increasingly to do things like telepathy and manifestation and, any number of other kind of things that are far more powerful than the stuff on the other side. And it becomes the next kind of evolutionary jump in humans. Call it conscious, the next level of consciousness. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's all about expanding awareness about who we are as individuals, biological, otherwise, and expanded awareness about the reality in which we live and how it all works, who else is out there, why it does, and so on. And what that does is turns into new physics and any number of other kind of things. And so you've got this track going off on the left hand, my left hand. That's all about the jump in the human evolution, and you can spiritualize that. You can do whatever you want on it, but that's essentially what it's about. How do you become somebody new? How do you see yourself and how do you see the world in a fundamentally different way? How do you rise to the occasion or rise above the occasion, the environment to do that? And that's what this is all about, because what it appears to be is that there's this kind of congruency between the configuration of the cosmos. I talked about how the solar system is going in a certain place and getting all this energy from the center of the galaxy. Well, that only happens every 4,000 years or whatever it is. And so when that happens, then it affects everything. And what it essentially does is it opens a door. It opens a door and things can happen within that period of time. Lots of people say it's about 36 years. It ends in 2030. It started back in it was kind of the midpoint was about 2012. But so if in that period of time, magic happens, right? Magic can happen. But what has to happen is that the individuals, you and me and our friend, whatever, what has to happen is that they've got to be ready to go to walk through the door, if you will. Yeah. I mean, this is a simplistic thing, but that's what it really looks like to me. And so, if you know anything about the Ra books, the Book of One and the Ra books and those big long channeled things, but they talk about the harvesting and that there is these times that all show up. And time is
another
is celestial configuration. That's what it is. I mean, that's how you decide what time is. It's this. So this is about a cosmic kind of opening, and it's ready, and the possibilities are amazing, because you could, in a very short period of time, get a critical mass of people together, visualizing what a new world might look like, and be able to, you get entrainment, you get, thousands of people all thinking about the same thing and working toward the same end, and you could just blow these guys out of the water. You don't have, it's not so much blowing them out of the water, is it, you can just go your own direction, and you don't have to worry about them, and they're not going to be worrying about you, because they've got their hands full with other stuff. And by the way, I believe that you get some kind of protective shell, or something that kind of essentially, they don't care, you're over there and you're not bothering them. I mean, what you really don't want to do is get in their face or any of that kind of stuff. This is the solution to this, is not to try to go up against them and try to change the present system. That's a loser, let me tell you. That is never going to get done. What we got to do is build a new world. And that is what we're trying to do at the Arlington Institute, is to systematically try to build a new world.
Thank you for that clear, very clear explanation and visualization of the possibilities of where we're at, looking at the time. And so the important part of what you said is bringing a bunch of people together and collectively activating this vision, which if, from a visceral perspective, you that's what's been happening with the other vision. It's like been so here, this is happening, and you can't turn it back. You can't turn it back. It's happening like a spell. And so it's really like spelling our new world into being. So I love that. And so, John, I love talking to you. We talk for hours. So let's give our listeners one more nugget. Like, what are you sensing into right now? If you can leave people with something on a inspirational note.
Yeah, sure. Well, the net kind of takeaway from all of this is that the technocracy, that word means that you've got a governmental system that's run by the technocrats, and so it's all run by technology, and you are dependent upon all of that. So the technocracy is evolving very, very rapidly, and my best guess, and the best guess of a number of other folks who have come independently to this conclusion, is that whether you're looking at it in terms of the AI and digitalization of the human experience, or whether it's energy, or whether, there's a number of different kind of ways to approach all of this. But we've got 2 years. We got about 2 years or less in order before they lock the whole thing. The whole thing gets locked down. And once they've got a digital ID and they control your money, then they got you. And that's what they've been trying to do. That's what that's what they've been trying to do forever. And so the alternative, the solution, is pretty self-evident. I mean, if you go to a party and you're not having a good time, and it's really, really crummy, what do? You leave, right? You go somewhere else. I mean, everybody knows that that's what you do. And that's what we got to do. We're at a really crummy party, is what we're doing here. And what we need to do is leave and go somewhere else. And what that means in practical terms is that we literally need to start to build in the framework for a new world. Because otherwise, if you don't have the framework and the structure, then you're just blown sideways by whatever winds of change or thing that shows up. And so what we're trying to do here at the Arlington Institute, in very practical terms, and I don't think there's anybody else that's doing this, is that we are trying to literally build the platform, the process, the environment, so that those of us who are interested in this new world and interested in building a new world can literally do it. And interestingly enough, or ironically enough, there's technology is the thing that's going to get us there, because we're at this place where there are right now capabilities of extraordinary power that can be adapted to what we're talking about. In particular, Robert Edward Grant, has developed a collaboration platform. He calls it Orion. And it, because of his extraordinary knowledge of math and such, he has figured out how that it can be encrypted so that even quantum computing can't decrypt it. And he is ultimately going to put it on, it's very close to being put onto the blockchain. And it will have everything that you now go out for. Right now we're talking on Zoom. It'll have video conferencing. It already has video conferencing. It has text. You can have telephone calls on the thing. You can have whiteboards. You name it, it can do it. It can build all of the aspects that you need for a community. And it is, Robert and his friends have put $90 million in. This is a really big, serious thing that could be revolutionized the way humans kind of interact with each other. At the same time, there is an artificial intelligence initiative that's being run by Mike Adams, that we here at the Arlington Institute are contributing to. And when this is all said and done, we will have contributed almost 30,000 scanned books and other documents to training this AI, which is designed specifically for us, right? Doesn't generate the woke San Francisco perspective when you ask it a question. But this new AI will be able to think of it as an alternative to Google or something that you can ask it any question. It'll tell you whatever you want to know. And but it's smart and it's enlightened, if you will. And so what I'm trying to do is put the AI together with the platform so it becomes an integral part of Robert's Orion platform. And then you have got the capability, the extraordinary and powerful capability to now have a global conversation in an organized, curated, as they said, way around how do you build a new world and what it might look like. And so part of that is finding the software to build a model that builds a model of what this new world could look like. I mean, when people from the education groups say we would need it to do this, and the technology guys or the transportation or whatever, who are spread all over the planet. I mean, we have a plan for all of this. And they start putting their information in, it needs to get aggregated and accrete in a way that you can see visually and say, well, look at that. There's some new ideas here in terms of the technology guys. They think that this could do this. And then you see the connections over to the sociology or the social, whatever it is. And when I talked to Robert Grant about that, when I was taking him to the airport here a couple of weeks ago, and told him that's what I did, he said, oh, that's easy. You do it with AI. You tell the AI what you want this thing to look like and how it's supposed to work, and the AI then builds it. That's the kind of accelerant. That's the capability that we've got now that we never had before. So it's literally possible. I mean, it sounds like a big deal to say that you've only got 2 years and we got to go in a new direction. We got to get an idea for a new world. In any conventional kind of way of thinking, you'd say you're stupid. I mean, nice idea, kid, but that's nuts. Not anymore. It's going. We have the capability to do this, and I'm working and trying to accelerate this thing, and going to produce a new book about it, and so on. And so that's what we're doing.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so much of the like free energy, and there's so much already ready to be
Yeah.
catapulted. It's like
Yeah.
sitting there. Why? And it's not allowed to come forth in the other picture.
Right.
So, yeah, amazing. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank
You're
you for
welcome.
sharing. And is there something that you guys that you need to help facilitate this magic wand? Magic wand.
Oh, liquidity,
Yeah.
all of this stuff runs on money. And so we're looking for partners who in their heart understand and resonate with what I've been talking about here
Yeah.
and say, this is a chance literally to build a new world.
Yeah.
And that there are a small number of folks with means who could look at this and say, that's what I want to put my life on. And so
Yeah.
it's, that's that we need enlightened, bright people to be part of this, because it's going to run very hard and run really fast, but it's going to be so exciting and so interesting and ultimately important. And so we have all of that. And so people can find me at the arlingtoninstitute.org. And you can find my email address there, and you can send me stuff, or I think it's even got my phone number. And then you can find out all about the things that we're doing at the Arlington Institute, arlingtoninstitute.org.
Yeah, amazing, amazing things you're doing there. And I will share all of the links in the show notes and where you can learn more about John and Arlington Institute, and come to catalysttalks.com to find those show notes. And of course, please share this episode, spread this spell narrative, and cast our new world into being. Thank you so much, John, for giving me this time, for giving us this time, and for the work you do and who you are. And yeah, if you're listening, please share, subscribe, comment. What's your takeaway? And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Wonderful being with you.
You too.